So, talking about the mythic uncommons earlier, made me think of the cards that I've liked drafting the most, and
Mm.
it is kind of interesting looking at this list. So, I made
Is
a
this
top
ever or
I made a top five list of cards I've liked drafting around, and
all
this
time
is
though?
this is of all time.
Oh, baby.
One is the first one on the list, number five, is actually a pretty recent addition. It's Ruthless Deathfang from Dragons of Tarkir. This is the four blue black 4/4. Whenever you sacrifice a creature, your opponent sacrifices a creature.
You just always had one of these too.
I always had
somehow.
one or two of them. I think I had an average of like 1.3 in my decks by the end of the format.
Like you
And,
were just drafting decks assuming that you would have one at some point
yeah,
because you always did.
My favorite combo with this was Sidisi's Faithful, the 1 blue 0/4 where you exploit to bounce a creature, because it basically meant that you could. There's a bunch of things you could do. The first one, the one that was the most common, was you'd play Deathbang, then immediately play Faithful, sack Faithful, bounce your opponent's second worst creature, and bounce your opponent so they had their best creature left in play, bouncing their worst creature if they only had two.
Mm-hmm.
And if they had more, you just bounce like something that's a threat and then make them sacrifice. But basically, you could stack it so that first the thing got bounced and then they had to sacrifice. Another combo is to just sacrifice a creature to bounce Sidisi's Faithful, making them sacrifice creatures. You can basically pay 1 blue and make both players sacrifice, which if you had random creatures lying around, it was pretty good. So even though I didn't really like drafting blue-black in that format, the Deathbang was a reason for me to do so. But number 4 here is Goblin Slide, another pretty recent addition.
You're on a real heater here early.
Yeah, I guess the last couple sets have had cards I really like. I like Goblin Slide so much, I actually bought the original art for it.
Do you have it in your office there? Or?
I do. It's hanging up in my office.
That is so cool.
I just love Goblin Slide, and unlike Ruthless Deathfang, Goblin Slide was a little worse. I think that it was harder to justify drafting Goblin Slide exactly, but every now and then it had its moments. and you know, the challenge was part of the fun, really. You just draft Goblin Slide, you draft so many spells, it's just awesome.
There's nothing more humiliating to losing to Goblin Slide, too. It's like, how did this happen?
Yeah, it was a pretty incredible card, and from here, though, it gets a little wackier. Number 3 was Cruel Ultimatum. This was back in Shard's block.
Oh,
this is a sorcery that costs blue, red, black. Your opponent sacrifices a creature, loses 5 life, discards 3 cards. You gain 5 life, draw 3 cards, and return a creature from your graveyard to your hand. So basically, when you cast this card, you win the game. Because it's a 10-point life swing. It's like an 8-card, swing on the board, or between the board and the hand. And in general, Cruel Ultimatum is the exact kind of card I wanted to first pick, because it leaves you pretty open, assuming that at the end of the day you can cap 3 swamps, 2 mountains, 2 islands.
Leaves you pretty open.
I was so bad at draft during this time. It was so funny. I'd just be like, yeah, I just first picked Cruel Ultimatum and Force Grixis. Obviously, that's how you draft.
The card was just all of those were unplayable.
Well, no, it wasn't unplayable.
You couldn't cast them.
You could definitely cast this in shards. The problem was you shouldn't force it. Taking it first is obviously just insanely committing. But no, Cruel Ultimatum was an actual card in that format. You could build your mana base to cast it if you took mana fixing very highly. And
God, I feel like I want my opponent to have that card in their deck.
I feel like I want to be the person with Cruel Ultimatum in my hand.
Yeah, I mean it's certainly more fun, but
well, it was a good card.
I mean, the card's a house. Yeah, the card's ridiculous.
I drafted a lot of decks around Cruel Ultimatum. It was just a ton of fun because it was the game of just survive and cast it and you just win. And that was it. So number 2 is one I actually know that you share an appreciation for. That's Burning Vengeance.
Oh, yes.
I didn't want to include both Burning Vengeance and Spider Spawning, and I felt like Burning Vengeance was actually the one I really wanted to draft. This is a 2 and a red for an enchantment, and whenever you cast a card from your graveyard, you can deal 2 damage to target creature or player. Basically, flashback was a big thing in the set, and this is Innistrad, and there you could just draft the deck full of like Dream Twist, the 1 blue mill for 3, flashback 1 and a blue, a bunch of flashback cards, think twice, and just go off. Like every card in your deck becomes a shock when you flash it back, and you can end up with 10 flashback spells in your deck pretty easily.
I remember that card.
I remember casting the 2 creatures can't block card that flashes back for 3 in a red or whatever.
Oh yeah.
when you have the double or triple Burning Vengeance deck, all of a sudden that starts looking pretty good. And one of the things I noticed about these cards is both Burning Vengeance, Goblin Slide, and then also actually even Ruthless Deathfang are all these like engine cards that I really love drafting around. And this is the sort of thing that really appeals to me. And part of what really keeps me playing Magic is getting to draft cards like this. So my number one card is not a card that works anymore.
Ooh, number one.
Under the rules, it actually doesn't function the way I want it to.
Oh no.
And that card is Reverse the Sands.
Well, I don't even know what that is. Tim does.
I do.
Yeah. 6 white sorcery. This is from Champions of Kamigawa.
One of your favorite formats, right?
It was, and part of the reason was Reverse the Sands. And
so this is a rare? Wait, did you say 6 white?
It's totally worth it.
It costs 8. Okay.
What you do
is be insane.
Is you assign all life totals for all players. So basically, in a multiplayer game, it would mean you get to choose where all the life totals go. In a 2-player game, it just means switch life totals.
What? You're paying 8 mana to switch life totals?
Exactly. So the reason this no longer works under the rules is that mana burn is no longer a thing.
Oh, no way.
The way to play this card was awesome. You sit there, you don't do anything, you don't attack your opponent. The turn before you're going to cast Reverse the Sands, you mana burn down to 1, you cast Reverse the Sands, all of a sudden they're at 1 and you're at 20. You just drain life them for 19. And then you just kill them with anything.
You just attack them with literal any creature they can get through?
Yes.
You have so much time. Like, you've got up to all that mana to do it. So, like, yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah.
That is absurd.
So the first Pro Tour I ever did well at was Pro Tour London. I think
My first Pro Tour on coverage.
Right? I don't know how you managed to get to London, but you were there somehow. And I was able to draft. So first of all, I'm at this point, I'm going into the last draft. It looks like whoever 3-0s this draft is going to make top 8.
Now, I want to stop. Was this a limited Pro Tour?
Yes, this is all draft.
This is before they had them split. Okay.
Right. All draft. So, this is...
Wow. So you got a draft for the top 8 if you 3-0.
Yeah, this is the first time I've ever done well at a Pro Tour, mind you. And I'm in a position where if I 3-0, I'll make top 8 of the Pro Tour. And I open my first pack and there's a Reverse the Sands in it. I don't take the Reverse the Sands. I took a really good white uncommon, basically 4 mana 4/4 that whenever it attacks gets +1/+1. And Nagao Bound by Honor. It's a 3/3 but has Bushido 1. Anyway, I take Nagao Bound by Honor and I wheel Reverse the Sands. And at this point I was just like, rubbing my hands mentally because everyone else at the table, my table had a ton of great players. Had Tim Ayton, Antoine Rouel, Tommy Wallamies, Jeff Cunningham, just like a lot of people, some who were at least who was in the Hall of Fame and a number who you would recognize. And none of them knew about Reverse the Sands because they weren't quite as visionary or quite as much of a visionary as I was, or I just had no idea what I was doing. Who knows? In any case, I took Reverse the Sands, drafted this very slow blue-white-black control deck in a format where you don't normally go 3 colors. In round 1, I play against this guy, and I'm in such a bad position in game 2 that I just have to top deck Reverse the Sands to win. So at the end of his turn, I just mana burn down to 1.
Oh my god.
Untap, draw, and concede. And he's like, why did you mana burn? And I was like, I just knew I was dead anyway. He's like, oh, okay.
He just thought you were like messing around or whatever?
Right. Game 3 we play. End of his turn, I mana burn down to 1, untap, cast Reverse the Sands, and win. And he just like looks at me. He's like, what? And just like, can't believe it. He's just sitting there. I leave the match. And he's just sitting there with his head in his hands. And as I'm walking away, the judge who was watching our match, who was his friend, was like, when he mana burned game 2, of course he had Reverse Sands. What else could he have? It didn't make any sense. Like, how could you not know it was Reverse the Sands? His opponent's like, I never even heard of this card. I ended up losing in the last round, so I did not make top 8. I top
That
16.
round, by the way, was one of the sweetest matches I've ever seen. The one against Tommy.
Oh yeah, my match against Tommy Wallamies was insane. It was one of the best matches I've ever played in my entire life. It was just absurdity after
stuck
absurdity.
out in Tim's head after all these years,
including me getting decked by him casting Hinder, which counters a spell and puts it on the top or the bottom on his own spell to not get decked.
Oh wow!
So
no wonder that stuck out, because at this time Luis wasn't a big name in Magic, right?
I remember having to ask him how his name was pronounced because I didn't know.
Yeah, I mean,
whether he was a
no one had any idea
Lewis
who
or
I
Louis.
was.
Wow, that's insane.
I think I had literally never done well in a tournament at this point. Like, that wasn't like a PTQ.
Wow.
But Anyway, Reverse the Sands, not just because of that, just because of everything that I've used it for is my favorite card, and it's especially, got the number one slot because I know it doesn't work anymore. So it kind of,
It's
has it locked up there.
Yeah. It's grandfathered in.
So if you didn't have a chance to appreciate Reverse the Sands, well, that ship has sailed.